Call at 6:39 p.m. Oh, thank you. All right, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Trunky, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Okay, everybody stand, please.
Stand. Face the flag. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 items to report from closed session for closed session action. Agenda item, claim number 24255. The board in closed session took action to reject claim 24255 by Paula Bowers. The vote was approved to reject the claim and the motion passed. There were 4 ayes, 1 nay. The next closed session agenda item was claim number 24251. In closed session on a motion by Mr. Trunky and seconded by Mr. Watson, the board voted to approve claim number 24251 in the amount of $22,350. There were 5 ayes, 0 nays. All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda for February 18th, 2025. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve?
Second. Any questions or comments? Okay. Board, please vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the governing board for February 4th, 2025. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Any questions? Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion passes. Next, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the special meeting of the governing board for February 5th, 2025. Can I get a motion and a second?
Move to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion passes. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to our hearing session. We have our Caring Student Award. And we have Mrs. Berries who will lead us through that presentation.
Thank you. Little people in the audience or big people, if you have your award certificate, if you could make your way up front and then spread out across this half circle up here, bring your award with you. Don't be shy. You guys are all here for amazing things. Come on up. If you are online tonight, raise your hand and Mr. Heinlein will find you. Perfect. Okay. While we're getting settled, I'd actually like to start with a quote tonight that I felt was really appropriate. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that is a quote by Maya Angelou. The students that you see tonight are models of this quote. They have been nominated for the Caring Student Award. Specifically, when we put this award out and ask people to nominate out of all the kids in the school, we ask for students that are supporting their peers, their classmates with kindness, cheerfully loud praise, and they're just wonderful, kind little human beings. So let's give everybody a round of applause before we start. Definitely all need more kindness in this world, and you guys are leaders in that. First off, from Bridgeport. one more round of applause for these wonderful. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Okay. Oh, stay here, stay here, stay here. Your time to shine is still, you're still on the clock. Okay, I'll turn it over to the board. They have any comments?
Absolutely. What a wonderful award to get. Thank you, Mrs. Barries, for sharing that quote. It is true. And also want to share a quote that's been cited by a lot of folks, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so the fact that y'all are showing how much you care to everybody on a daily basis is just fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you all for being such caring and wonderful students. And thank you, parents and families, for sharing your students with us tonight.
Congratulations to all of you for your award. It's a wonderful award to be recognized for. You're a bright spot in a somewhat chaotic world. And thank you to all of your parents. You set the example. You have taught them, and we thank you.
Again, thank you to everyone here. Congratulations to all the students. Being caring and kind is probably one of the most important things that your parents and your community and teachers can teach you. So thank you very much. I also think it's great to have the courage to do so as well. So thank you again to the students and to the parents. You guys are doing an amazing job. So thank you.
And I'll just second what all the board members said, but you know, the neat thing about kindness is that it doesn't cost anything, right? It's absolutely free, and we can all be kind to each other. We never know what people are going through. So just taking the time to be nice to somebody, to, you know, share a smile, to share a laugh, and just, you know, just be kind is super important. So you guys are well on your way, and thank you for exhibiting that leadership and hopefully encouraging your friends to do the same thing. It's really important in this world. Congratulations. And now we get to the fun part. All of our parents have their cameras ready. We'll take a picture with the board, and then if any of our parents want to take pictures, feel free. We'll stand up right behind our students and take some pictures. Because the last one. All right. All right, I know our parents want to take more pictures, so we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 6:56. Okay, let's go ahead and reconvene the meeting. This is the part of meeting where we advance written requests to address the board regarding agenda and non-agenda items. Board bylaws 9320, 9322, and 9323 each speak to the process used by the governing board to allow for public comment during its meetings. The bylaws are in compliance with the Brown Act and other applicable law. Board bylaw 9323 specifically outlines the process for members of the public to address the governing board on agenda and non-agenda items that are within its subject matter jurisdiction. Members of the public wishing to address the governing board are asked to do the following prior to the start of the public comment section of the meeting agenda to ensure that appropriate time is allotted to all interested speakers and topics. The speaker must either complete a speaker card for each item they desire to speak on and/or notify the assistant to the superintendent of each item if attending the meeting in person. This notification is requested to allow the board president to consistently implement public comment guidelines provided by Board Bylaw 9323. Members of the public wishing to make public comment via telephone or virtual meeting software must notify the assistant superintendent via email not later than 4:30 p.m. on the day of the scheduled meeting to ensure that the person has the same opportunity to address the board under Board Bylaw 9323 as those who are in attendance. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes per topic for public comment. The total time allotted for each topic is 20 minutes. Depending on the number of persons wishing to be heard on a single topic, the governing board may adjust the time allotted for each speaker or the total time allocated to the topic issue. The president of the board may take a poll of speakers for and against the topic issue to determine how best to allot time on each topic issue. Members of the public who wish to address the board do so either in person or via Zoom. A speaker card may be read. A speaker may read a statement from an individual not in attendance. However, their allotted speaking time will not be extended to read such a statement. Timer visible to all attendees who will be used to manage time during public comment. Any speaker who exceeds their allotted time will have their mic cut off. To ensure that non-English speakers receive the same opportunity to address the board, any member of the public who utilizes a translator shall be provided at least twice the allocated time to address the board, unless simultaneous translation equipment is used to allow the board to hear the translated public testimony simultaneously. Please remember that state law prevents the board from acting on any matter not listed on the agenda or from discussing any such matter in detail. Okay, we'll start with our speaker cards. This is a new one? Okay, I'll keep that one in the back. Okay, Marisol Holcomb. And after Marisol is Cynthia Rodriguez. This is DLI.
Distinguished board members and all present audience, after years of seeking support, the Highlands DLI team feels it is crucial to our concerns to be addressed. Ongoing challenges are significantly impacting our ability to plan effectively, which directly affects instructional quality and student learning. Our team collaborates in learning cycles to align materials and strategies with traditional classrooms. However, many required resources are not available in Spanish, leaving DLI teachers responsible for translating and adapting them. An additional workload that extends beyond contractual hours with insufficient compensation. Despite repeated requests for a dedicated DLI TOSA, we have been informed that budget constraints make this unfeasible. However, the needs for this role remains critical. A DLI TOSA would provide essential support by offering training in Spanish, assisting with curriculum, and enhancing instructional effectiveness. This investment would alleviate teacher workload and directly benefit student outcomes. In addition, our ongoing teacher shortage has led to an increased reliance on monolingual educators, leaving DLI teachers responsible for double the workload, teaching 2 full classrooms, managing double the parent communication, handling student concerns, and completing twice the paperwork, all without additional support. These increasing demands have created an unsustainable workload, making it difficult to maintain the integrity of our program. Without appropriate support, teacher burnout is unavoidable, which can negatively impact the long-term success of the DLI program at Highlands. We urge you to consider solutions that provide additional staffing, resources, and fair compensation to ensure the continued success of our program. We appreciate your time and attention to this pressing matter and look forward to discussing possible solutions. Thank you.
In addition to the academic challenges, teaching a class composed entirely of language learners in the language that they are still acquiring presents several behavioral challenges for educators. One major difficulty is maintaining student engagement and preventing frustrations as learners struggles to follow instructions or grasp lesson content, leading to disengagement or disruptive behaviors. Miscommunication can also result in misunderstandings, causing students to act out due to confusion or embarrassment. Additionally, varying language proficiency levels within the class can create disparities in participation, with more confident students dominating discussions while others remain silent or distracted. Classroom management becomes more complex as teachers balance providing comprehensible input while addressing off-task behaviors that stem from language barriers rather than defiance. Without clear communication, establishing routines, enforcing rules, and fostering a positive learning environment requires extra patience, creativity, and culturally responsive strategies.
Next up, we have Teresa Garcia, and the topic is secondary traumatic stress.
In his dissertation, The Cost of Caring, Anthony C. Hill defined secondary traumatic stress, or STS, as the adverse effects to teachers due to exposure to the emotional pain of their students. According to Hill, there is a correlation between STS and educators leaving the profession. Figley makes the case that individuals can be traumatized without actually being physically harmed or threatened with harm. Some of the symptoms of secondary traumatic stress are distressing emotions such as sadness, grief, and anxiety, intrusive imagery which presents itself in the form of nightmares, somatic complaints such as headaches and heart palpitations, and impairment of day-to-day functioning, which may cause an increase in absenteeism, quitting, and the inability to focus. As a veteran teacher in this district and elected member of our union, I hear the stories and I see the impacts of secondary traumatic stress on our teachers. Feelings of disillusionment may come in many forms for many reasons. Let me lay a few of them out for you here. Overcrowded classrooms, lack of support, time constraints, lack of resources, fatigue as we try to meet the emotional needs and behavioral challenges of children. Yet, we are still held to the task to perform academically, to teach rigorous standards daily, to close the achievement gap for students who come to us performing below grade level, while at the same time enrich students who are performing at or above grade level. Teach daily SEL to students while at the same time having them complete a diagnostic that assigns questions on material that they haven't even been taught yet. Just tell them it doesn't matter. The test is adaptive. Try telling that to a student who is in tears because they don't know how to compute a quadratic equation and are used to always trying to do their best. Try telling them to just guess. It's quite a paradox, isn't it? Board members, I am grateful that you are listening and prepared to ask questions and offer suggestions to these problems. I'd like to offer some guidance into areas that you can look into further. We need emergency response protocols for extreme behaviors at our schools that are clearly communicated to staff, not some convoluted flowchart, but clear, concise plans to lend support. We need to ensure that balanced classes are created in our grade levels. And with that, we need to look at the practice of the split class. And if there's an opportunity to collapse a split, it should be collapsed. We need to look into over-assessing our students and further stressing them out, especially the iReady diagnostic. We need to brainstorm realistic ways to support our teachers who find themselves suffering from secondary traumatic stress in tangible ways. Simply telling us to put our oxygen masks on first before we can help others are just words and don't offer practical solutions. I certainly don't have all of the answers, and I know that committees are being formed to brainstorm solutions, but please do not forget the teachers that are currently going through it right now. As I near retirement, I feel compelled to do all that I can for my colleagues to create better working conditions for them. Thank you for listening.
Tammy Messina. Regarding the agenda.
Good evening, Board. I was disappointed at the lack of action and concrete takeaways from the special meeting on February the 5th on the behavior challenges. At this point, I'm certain that our district educators are well aware of what the behavior challenges are. The expected outcomes we hope to hear at that special meeting were recommendations for addressing the challenges and an implementation plan. But honestly, I didn't expect to see the behaviors listed on the agenda again today. So I'd like to thank President Garibay and the rest of the board for keeping this important issue front and center by including it on tonight's agenda. I look forward to hearing the discussion and subsequent directed actions provided to both Superintendent Hawkins and her cabinet to immediately address at least some of the behavior concerns that have been voiced over the past few months. I'm hopeful that tonight we'll see real progress with actionable steps to provide our teachers and students with some immediate relief. Thank you for tonight.
Ingrid Boydston, and this is regarding the big behavior topic.
Good evening, I'm Ingrid Boydston, and here are 10 things we could do to improve the situation here in Saugus. Number one, we have to close the communication gap between teachers and you. Those of you who truly stand behind the data that you presented at the special behavior meeting have either not been listening or you do not understand what we are talking about. The gap is as wide as it has ever been between some of us, which leads us to number two, eliminate PBIS. It has too many flaws. For example, with the tickets, we are teaching children to do the right thing, but for the wrong reason. And it counts on teachers putting information into an ODR that is inefficient and ineffective. If a teacher does input the data, the first thing that happens is she's given a huge list of more work to do on an impossible timeline. If a child does move through the tiers, then there's inadequate support personnel to help that child and their behaviors in a way that is both consequential, logical, and effective. Now take this into consideration. We have kids who are identified with big behavior problems in TK and K. They're in the upper grades now. I think that right in itself is evidence that it is not and has not been working. They just keep moving through. Number three, involve parents sooner before behaviors get big with truthful transparency. Addressing small problems is a great way to avoid having big ones. Number four, reinstate the consequences that are already allowed in ed code. If a child's behavior stops the learning, remove the child from the classroom. If detention is required, have it after school or on the weekends. At those detentions, you could give behavior management lessons that could make it restorative, not just punitive. And by all means, suspend any violent actions. Number five, restore the basic behavior management tools that you required us to get rid of. Clip charts, flip charts, behavior gauges, old-fashioned Canfield journals, class dojos, even classroom economies can all be highly effective in helping kids learn to self-regulate before they get into big behaviors. Number six, I'll say it again, get rid of the oversized furniture that causes further crowding. It really does affect behavior. More on that later. Number seven, bring back the counselors. It helps mitigate problems before they become exploded, and also provide a map of where the calming room is in each site supposed to be, not calm corners. They are not the same thing. Number eight, do not overlook this one. Stop placing children with special needs in regular ed classrooms without first ensuring you have what they need there. They get overwhelmed, and it is no wonder that they act out. They become destructive and dangerous, not only to themselves, but everybody else in the classroom. They are not the only children with big behaviors, but they are some of the most vulnerable, and we could help them. Number nine, we've got to improve the climate for teachers. Thank you for what you said. You can't be your best teacher when you're anxious and you're worried about the safety of your children, and you can't speak up because you're nervous about retribution, which is what all the teachers are telling me. I'm afraid I'm going to get my grade level placement changed or my site changed because I'll be labeled a troublemaker, not a problem solver. And number 10, please consider this very seriously. We have along the worst ratio of adults to children in the country. The Board of Education's recommended ratio is 22-1. We have 28 and 32. I'm not asking for more teachers.
Thank you.
I'm simply asking for more help in the classroom.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Michelle Joseph? Michelle Joseph? Michelle Joseph? Michelle Joseph? Yes? Okay.
Before I begin tonight, I'd like to make a request again. Last time I talked about looking at devices, but in all of our classrooms in this district, we have these posters. These posters should be very familiar to the teachers here. They talk about whole body listening. We expect the children to do this, to pay attention, give us eye contact, not be messing with things in front of them, to be actively listening to what we're saying. And with all due respect, I request that we all follow that, because I believe we as adults should be role models for our students and for each other. So please, when people are up here, please do whole body listening. Pay attention to what they're saying. Okay, on that note, good evening, board members, cabinet, colleagues, community members, and families. I'm going to talk about behavior issues today. There has been an uptake in student behavior in the past few years. This does not come from how the teachers are dealing with the students. A lot of it comes from what students are dealing with outside of school. Even with all the SEL lessons that are being taught, all the praise, all the rewards, all the supports we are providing, the behaviors continue to disrupt teaching. The behaviors are definitely not limited to the special day classes, where we do expect some behaviors. These are affecting resource specialist services, all the other specialist services, general education classes. It involves everybody. Teachers have students randomly calling out during lessons, students throwing things and destroying bulletin boards, students going after other students and making inappropriate comments or putting hands on them, students leaving classrooms that then somebody's got to monitor them. Teachers cannot teach with all of this going on. If students are overly disruptive, support is required. This means the social worker, the behaviorist, the school psychologist, and/or the principal needs to step in. Some of these situations take a lot of time to get under control, which means that those adults cannot do their job. Their main job is not to be following a student around campus. They all have jobs to do. Some of these students, including those in the SDC classes, also know what they're doing. They'll look at the adults and smile as they disrupt the classroom. I myself have had to skip teaching lessons due to a student intentionally disrupting the class, which puts me behind in following the pacing guide, and also means the rest of the
Thank you,
students
Ms. Joseph.
are receiving the lessons that they are entitled to.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Thank you. John Alexilopoulos? Did I pronounce that right?
Good evening, and thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak to you. My name is John Alexopoulos. I'm a retired school administrator. I spent 40 years with Los Angeles Unified School District. I was in charge of student discipline, student IEPs, and art instructional programs. My responsibility included being tasked with addressing students whose actions caused a disruption. We didn't call it big behaviors. We recognized that it was disrupting instruction. I would ask that this board recognize, as you put in your document, in recent weeks, some members of this SUSD community have stated that these consequences are not adequate for changing the behavior or the adequate in keeping any victim of student misbehavior safe. This is not about consequences. This is about providing support in the classroom and in the school so that the teacher can do what they need to do, instruct, and that the students can do what they need to do to pay attention and learn what is being taught. Disruptive behaviors occur when students have learned that they can avoid being frustrated by causing a disruption in instruction and move outside of the classroom and no longer be frustrated. Please look at the resources and supports that are needed to allow all students to engage at the school and in the classroom and a safe learning environment for all students. Please look at what steps are being implemented in the classroom beyond what is currently being done to address those behaviors. And please review, above all, what budget can be benchmarked to directly address this issue. Thank you.
Karen Frost, followed up by Tim Ben Boydston.
Good evening. Glad to be back. Last time I was here at the podium, I was very optimistic about the February 5th meeting. I was very much looking forward to really hearing the agenda and how we were going to be addressing this issue that, according to Dr. Hawkins, has been under review and under assessment since 2019. That's 5 years. And from our assessment, from listening to the community, it just doesn't seem to be getting better. If anything, it just seems to be getting worse. So thank you, Mrs. Garibay, for putting this onto the agenda and actually listening to the teachers and the community, because this is a big issue. I felt compelled after the February 5th meeting to schedule a meeting with one of your counterparts at the Newhall School District. And Mrs. Carville and I met with Sue Solomon. And it's a neighboring district. It's 5 miles away. And it has the demographics very similar to ours, 10 schools, 15 schools, but basically the same neighborhood. And Mrs. Garibay or Mrs. Solomon said that the teacher morale is really great. And they have behavioral problems, but they recognize them immediately because they have school counselors and they deal with it on a real-time basis. I don't understand why one school district 5 miles away has great teacher morale and has low disciplinary issues, and we here are struggling with this month after month after month. So I want to tell you that I'm very optimistic. I'm hearing some real solutions for something that's been festering for about 5 years. And I just want to read something from a teacher that reached out to me. She couldn't be here tonight. And she said, the district needs to find a way to share real data without identified students so they can accurately report problems to be solved. They are legally bound to protect the privacy of the student as well as the legalities of meeting up the needs of students being brought up. Personally, she says, I'm of the opinion at this point that finding a system that allows for transparency with privacy is what the board needs to address. You can't regain the trust of parents if they feel like the school board aren't being told full disclosure of the behaviors and challenges in the classroom. I think you guys need to get the raw data. I need you to hear exactly what's happening in the classroom. I don't have trust that you guys are getting the real information. Listen to the subject matter experts. These teachers know what they're doing. Take the handcuffs off and let them do their job. They know how to do it, okay? Thank you.
After Tim Ben, it's Len and then Jackie.
Good evening, President Garibay, board members, Superintendent Hawkins, and cabinet members. I'm Tim Ben Boydston. I'm a former city councilman. And board members, I know this is not a pleasant job sometimes, but it's your job, as it was my job. The difference being that Superintendent Hawkins has the job here that the city manager had where I used to work when I represented all of you. And unfortunately, the job is not being done well. How do I know this? Well, because my wife has the pleasure and honor of teaching children in this district for over 30 years. And I follow very carefully what goes on in this district. And with prior superintendents, we never had this problem. We didn't have this problem. So I have to lay that at the feet of the superintendent. And the board members who are being made aware need to speak with the superintendent because she makes a great deal of money. She's a professional and she needs to fix it. Ms. Berries, a kid tears apart a classroom, as we talked about in the last meeting, where we sat on those hard chairs for an hour and a half while we got mostly lectured. Tears apart, which you said is the policy, no? You said it was the practice. Is the practice of Saugus to go ahead and evacuate the room. And you teach a terrible lesson to the child who is tearing it apart and everyone running away and getting out of the road, and all the other kids who are terrorized a bad and terrible lesson. And how long do you take to fix it according to your presentation last time? 8 weeks, and then 8 weeks, and then 8 weeks in your steps. 24 weeks of school? Are you kidding me? The kids are going to have terrible, terrible problems, let alone the burden on the teachers. This is ridiculous. I'm not sure who came up with this system where there are no consequences as you go along. Of course, as you said, I would like to be told quietly and softly, and that's how you should talk to a children. Well, I don't know a teacher in this district, any other teacher I've ever met, that didn't do that the first time around. But when that doesn't work, you need consequences. And you need on consequences a month or 2 or 3 months later when school is practically over. You need consequences from day one, okay? And so my message to the board is, lawyers out there, they listen and they can subpoena everything, and everything's in writing. These teachers are very good about that. The price you will have to pay when some kid injures another kid is going to be far, far greater than what you need to do right now and get help in those classrooms. This is not fair to the children. It's not fair to the teachers. And if the parents could see in these classrooms with a video, there would be hundreds of them here. No one would be in this district. I look forward to your action. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Jackie Afterlin.
Well, I got to say that all these people that spoke tonight really took all the wind out of my sails, but I'm going to try my best. Big behavior, 2 simple words that mean an awful lot. And I've heard I've heard those words and the behavior issues and all that over the last few months. Allow me a little bit of history in my own life. I was a rotten kid. I was terrible. Okay. And I was being sent to the principal's office all the time. My parents, my dad, a military man, put me in military school for 6th through 9th grade. Okay. Discipline there was swift, sure, harsh, and absolutely unapologetic. Okay. Trust me. Okay. I was one of those kids that was a disciplinary nightmare. I'd have to stand in front of the colonel's office, arms extended with a rifle across my arms. Don't worry, it was demilitarized. Okay. For an hour. And let me tell you, it only takes a few minutes to go from this to this. And you are dying. Okay? Marching back and forth in front of the colonel's office. Believe me, it's a punishment I deserved. Okay? For 4 hours at a minimum. Okay? We need this discipline, and it needs to be adjustable. It needs to recognize what's going on. And instead of operating from a script. Oh, if they do this, do that. A flow chart. Forget it. We have to be far more flexible in this. And every one of you on the board and you, Dr. Hawkins, have to listen. Open your eyes, listen, take the input and act on it. As Tim Ben Boydston said, do it quickly. Step up. There's simply no reason not to. These are our kids. These are tomorrow's leaders. It doesn't stop with you guys. Okay, it continues through them. And if you will not or cannot apply proper discipline and proper corrective action, then you may not. You may leave to be replaced by someone who can and will. It's really pretty simple. And I'm trying to stay pretty calm. Everyone knows my reputation as the bull in the china shop. Okay? Yeah, there you go. Still got 30 seconds. But yeah, I mean, look, bottom line is whole body listening, the lady in red, wherever you are, okay? Several. And what Ingrid said, okay? You have got to listen to these people. They know what they're talking about. And unless you're in there with them every day, watching and learning and listening, you don't have the info. You don't have what you need. And to dismiss anyone that brings info to you is reprehensible. And that's it. I'm done. I just had it.
Jackie, and then we'll have Miss Joseph, but she's speaking on a different agenda item, right? Okay.
Okay, I didn't really know if you were going to answer first or if we were going to speak, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. Hi, it's me again. I was frustrated before the last behaviors meeting. Well, I left even more frustrated. If you don't remember me, my son was kicked in the stomach at school. If you can actually sit up here and argue that current behavior in the district is not a problem or a new issue, then you are obviously too far removed. If you cannot even acknowledge that this problem needs immediate action, then things will obviously not change quickly enough. Students are being injured, so I have a lot of questions. How does that not get preventative energy? Schools' safety should be a top priority. Are most teachers and staff scared to speak up? What is happening? Parents mention feeling crazy. Is that your intention? It feels so backwards that the teachers' experiences are not being taken seriously. What exactly are you doing for the nonviolent kids starting immediately? See something, say something, right? What does behavior discipline look like at SUSD? If that can't be explained, it can't be followed through with. I've come to you with more experiences in our district. If proof that harm is actually happening is what you need before preventing it. Number one, a first grade girl was punched in the stomach by the same girl for the second time last week. This girl struggles and the victim has befriended her because she sees the good in her. She came to her mom and slept for an hour after tears. This is absolutely cuss word, quote. This is a quote from the mom. That the majority of children are being exposed to this behavior and no changes are being made. It's infuriating. Number two, different school. First grade teacher quit because it is so hard dealing with this misbehaviors. Number three, daughter got grabbed by the ponytail and head smashed into a computer. Number four, a very involved mom from a different school. We've gone through maybe 5 schools at this point. Until her youngest just moved on to junior high. Her quote is, kid was throwing chairs and was a monster in class. District didn't do anything until half the class stopped attending school. Total nightmare. I want nothing to do with that district. They have driven the district into the ground. She's now a parent with her youngest is 7th grader. Number 5, last week a parent has a brother moving here and she told them do not send their kids to our school. The behaviors are too bad and their children will have issues with the current students in their grade. Are you all okay with this reputation as a school district? We are literally shouting at this point. How is it possible that we are so far off track? As mentioned last time, take a look at your neighboring school district. Where are they having better success? I just attended an information meeting at Valencia High with a district presentation. They were so happy to have parent attendance and grateful for involved parents. I have not felt the same warm welcome here. I have a lot more to say, but I guess it's 3 minutes. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I did not want to end with just the behaviors and problems. I wanted to end with suggestions, which was what my second card was. Because I know that I want to be able to do my job. My coworkers want to be able to do their jobs. So we need a few things. Staff to specifically deal with behaviors when they occur, to be assigned to each school full-time instead of covering multiple schools. Because the behaviors don't occur only on days when those staff behaviorists and social workers are on campus. A room needs to be, not a corner, a room on each campus where students can be taken to calm down. Having a swing seat of some sort and other sensory items in the room would benefit the struggling students. Keep in mind, on inclement weather days, we cannot take students for a walk outside or to the swings on the playground. They need that. A consistent weekly lunch brunch or a counseling group, consistent weekly to support those students who are experiencing difficulty with self-control. I know these cost money. I get that. Hiring counselors back is going to cost money. I get that. We all get that. But money's going to have to be spent in order to deal with these issues. And we really, really need to deal with these issues to help our kids be successful, because if they go out into the world with these behaviors, they're not going to hold down jobs. they're not going to be successful. If they think that they can just run amok and do all these things that they're doing, we need to fix this somehow. We really do. So please take into consideration what everybody has said tonight, because we have a real problem on our hands. And after 38 years, I'm looking at this and I don't know what to say at this point. If we're not going to fix it, we're doing a major disservice to children. So please take a look at it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to our Saugus Teachers Association, Ms. Linda Valdez. You are? Okay. So what?
Good evening, board members, cabinet colleagues, community members, and families. Congratulations to this evening's award recipients. We're always very proud of you. There are many, many things we could, as STA, talk about this evening. However, for this particular board meeting, behavior is at the forefront. We have heard from experienced teachers. We've heard from concerned parents. Over the last few months, we've heard from exhausted paraeducators. And we have heard from community members, taxpayers, and constituents who intend on holding us all accountable for providing a high quality and safe educational experience for the children of the Saugus Union School District. In order to do that, they require us to be transparent and forthcoming. We all know that it's easy to recognize and put on display, if you will, all that is going well. I think we do a good job at that. Board meeting after board meeting, our district administration, district staff, and site administrators share the many things that are going well. But to carefully, thoughtfully, and openly look at what is not going well, that is what's most difficult. That is where we analyze and expose where our systems and practices may have flaws. That is where we identify and pinpoint the areas of need, and we know that behavior issues stem from unmet needs. It is our responsibility to figure out how those needs can be met and whether or not we have the resources and capacity to do so. A recent press release put out by the district about big behaviors was published by SEV News on Friday, detailing what constitutes big behaviors. Big behaviors include student actions such as destruction of school or classroom property, ripping classroom displays apart, breaking classroom tools, etc. Toppling or throwing school furniture or classroom objects, tipping over desks, tables, chairs, throwing small classroom objects, throwing chairs or larger objects, etc. Aggressively verbally assaulting school personnel or students, using profanity while shouting, using racial, gender, or anti-Semitic slurs, etc. Spontaneously injuring other student or school personnel by hitting, spitting, biting, etc., where blood is drawn or swelling, bruising occurs. Eloping out of the classroom or off the campus to avoid engaging in classroom school expectations. Threatening an individual or school classroom with violence involving a weapon, including "I'll kill you," or "I'm getting a gun and shooting the entire class," etc. These behaviors are happening in our classrooms more frequently than you can think. The press release also included excerpts from EdCode with recommendations on how to address these behaviors. While we have a positive behavior incentive system, PBIS, and a multi-tiered support system, MTSS, there are numerous other approaches listed that we have yet to explore, including after-school detention, community service, anger management programs, or reassignment to an alternative educational environment, just to name a few. This past week, each site was asked to compile a list of consequences that we are currently using and ones we would like to propose. The list will be reviewed on Thursday at the next Behavior Council meeting. But ultimately, this board will be providing the district with direction and actionable next steps. So in thinking about consequences, please consider this. Every time these big behaviors occur, the other students and the teachers and the paraeducators and the yard supervisors pay a considerable consequence. And if we don't provide consequences or corrective actions that curtail the behaviors from repeating themselves over and over again, the most egregious consequence of all has occurred. We have failed that child from breaking the pattern of misbehavior and destruction. So aside from pleading with you, yet again, to listen, truly listen to the suggestions that have been and will continue to be provided, we ask you to probe, to ask the hard questions, sometimes unpopular, uncomfortable questions, but please dig deep. We have been. Changes must be made. Our students deserve more. Thank you.
Before we call up CSEA, I just wanted to make a quick point of clarification. So there was no press release sent out by the district. What ended up happening, or what I would imagine happened, is the paper, they found the agenda and they basically like took the agenda that was up on the city or the school's website and used that as a source of information. So they used that as a press release, but we didn't actually send out a press release, just so everybody's clear on that. You're welcome. CSEA, Ms. Sylvia Arnon.
Good evening, Cabinet Board members and community members. Congratulations to those who received the Caring Student Award. The act of displaying kindness and concern for others is truly admirable. You are an inspiration to your peers and to everyone lucky enough to know you. We continue to meet for negotiations, and our classified employees are hopeful they will receive the longevity recognition they so rightfully deserve. Our special education paraeducators in the preschool program continue to work diligently while waiting for the district to acknowledge their extra work. We are aware that the district is taking steps towards looking into possible solutions to increasing behaviors in our classrooms. The morale of our employees continues to be low. More support is needed. Our members report that precautionary measures are not being taken and that the systems in place are not working. The district has been working with us to develop safety language to add to our contract. This is a big step toward positive changes. Again, more needs to be done. Appreciation, kindness, care, and empathy are simple words. They hold profound meaning and can make a difference. As we navigate challenging behaviors and deal with so much, we would like to see more of these values expressed by the adults that we work with. Classified employees work hard, support each other, and demonstrate stellar quick thinking and problem-solving abilities. We deserve to be addressed with kindness at all times. We look forward to better days that hopefully begin tonight. If we are heard, then there is hope for change. Thank you.
Next up from the Saugus Administrators Association, Ms. Elizabeth Ballina, sorry, Ballina.
Right. Good evening, President Garibay, members of the Saugus Union School Board, Superintendent Dr. Hawkins, and Cabinet. I'm Elizabeth Ballina, the proud principal of Rosedale Elementary, and I'm honored to address you tonight on behalf of the Saugus Administrators Association. First, congratulations to all our students who are receiving or who received the Caring Award this evening. Your positive influence on each of our campuses is deeply appreciated, and the impact you're making is significant. As we reflect on the hard work happening across all of our school sites by all of our staff, both credentialed and classified, I want to highlight everyone's unwavering commitment to the continuous growth and success of our students. Over the past several months, since students took the iReady Diagnostic 1, our professional learning teams, PLTs, at grade levels K through 6 have been deeply engaged in analyzing iReady Diagnostic scores to drive instruction. Using this data, teachers have been identifying areas where students need additional support and crafting targeted interventions to ensure that all of our learners have the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. It's clear that our teachers are not only interpreting this data, but they are thoughtfully utilizing it to improve instructional practices and provide personal attention to each student's unique needs. At Foster, as they analyzed their Diagnostic 2 data, they found that the grade levels that experienced the greatest growth worked closely with the TOSAs. These grade levels participated in a book study with the TOSAs, invited them to their planning time, and engaged in their after-school professional development sessions. Additionally, they set specific goals with their students, leading to great growth. At Mountain View, they have created 2 iReady goal sheets for primary and upper grades to support student learning. They are in the midst of planning their Diagnostic 2 celebration, Go Green, which will culminate their first ever Growth Mindset Week. During this week, the focus will be on developing a growth mindset and strategies for becoming the best version of ourselves, of themselves, and ensuring that all students are learning at high levels. At West Creek, students have been reflecting on their growth, with many students showing growth at 50 to 100 points. They have a golden ticket worth 25 HAL tickets for all students who have shown growth, and they have a green party celebration for all students who have moved into the yellow or red bands to green. I'm from Rosedale, so we're going to highlight a lot of Rosedale, but at Rosedale, now that we have the iReady Diagnostic 2 results, we'll be updating our data wall to help students visually track their growth at the school community. Every student has reviewed their iReady scores and conference with their teacher regarding their growth. Moving forward, all students will set goals to pass specific numbers of lessons each week between now and Diagnostic 2. I'd also like to highlight some of the incredible growth we've seen with our students with disabilities, specifically those in our inclusion program. For example, a 2nd grader inclusion student made 57 points growth between Diagnostic 1 and 2 in reading, moving from kindergarten to 1st grade. In Mrs. Shabra's 3rd grade class, it includes 5 of our inclusion special education students. As of Diagnostic 2, Mrs. Shabra's class does not have a single student in her class which is in the red band for reading, so at the bottom, and she has all 5 of the 3rd grade inclusion students. All 5 of those inclusion students were in SDC last year, and all of them are in yellow or green after taking the iReady Reading Diagnostic 2, and all of them made significant growth in reading, math, or both. One shining star made 59 points growth in math from kindergarten to 2nd grade and 49 points growth in reading from 1st to 3rd grade. We are truly closing the achievement gap, and I'm incredibly proud of the work being done at Rosedale. I shared a bit of this growth during my professional learning team meeting for my California Principal Support CAPS cohort meeting this past week, and Dr. Karen Fractor asked what I believe led to the change. I've had time to reflect on that question since she first asked me, and I'd like to expand on the answer I gave off the cuff. While I stand by the idea that we've placed the right people in the right roles, teachers and paraeducators who believe in the program and collaborate effectively, I'm also reminded of something I've learned from Dr. Luis Cruz. He says that RTI stands for Responsible Teachers Intervening. I've seen incredible collaboration between my 3rd grade level professional learning team, Ms. Perdicette Frost, our special education teacher, and Mrs. Mejia, our paraeducator who supports the inclusion students, as they intervene with the explicit purpose of helping students learn. Looking at this data, you can clearly see the impact that responsible teachers and paraeducators intervening can have on student learning. As we celebrate Black History Month, I feel it fitting to share one of my favorite quotes from the esteemed educator and leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "The time is always right to do the right thing." This quote resonates deeply with the work that we are all doing each day as we strive to do what is right for all of our students. All means all, and together we can achieve more for all of our students by continuing to partner responsibly and intervene for their success. And with that, I'd like to introduce my parent leader who is he serves as both our site council president, but is also a member of our Dad's Club. Some might know him as DJ Gene, but we call him Mr. Wright on campus. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Wright.
Want everybody to take a second and think about why you're here, what we do, with the families, the education, and everything that we do for our children. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I volunteer at Rosedale Elementary. So my name is Eugene Wright. I'm a husband of our PTA president, Ms. Jeanette Wright. I'm a father to both a 5th and 2nd grader at Rosedale Elementary, Mr. Marvin and Mr. Mason. And I'm also in my day job, when I'm not volunteering at Rosedale, I'm an IT solutions architect with a master's in business administration with a focus in project management. I am a certified project management professional and hold certain certifications in agile methodology and as well as Microsoft. And last but not least, I'm also an Air Force veteran and the son of an Air Force retiree. At Rosedale, it's my 2nd year serving with Ms. Bellina here at the site council, where I have a purview and a perspective to the challenges and everything that the faculty, admin, and staff do to meet the criteria of everyone. And I'm also serving in my 3rd year as Dad's Club, which is a committee from our PTA at the school. Starting with our PTA, it's a very active and fun PTA, which we've hosted a myriad of events to include our Harvest Festival, our recent book fair, where we really kicked a lot of butt and raised a lot of money. And right now we're going through our Apex fundraiser, not only this week, but next week. Now on to our Dad's Club, led by Mr. Ryan Aschek. We're a collection of dads who's committed to the well-being of our students by assisting our PTA. And that's how we all got voluntold to get involved. We do host our own events, such as movie nights, one in the fall and as well as in the spring. We have a toy build where we work with our local Lowe's and Home Depot to get different toys to build for the kids. So there's a little STEM involvement there. And I'd like to expound on our newly created initiative that we piloted in the beginning of school year and we have going, and that's our Story Time with Dad's Club. I started this initiative because the Dad's Club is a deep tradition at our school and wanted to add an educational base, low cost, and engaging thing with reading. And so we piloted this back in September, and with the support of Ms. Bellina, our admin team, Ms. Sue, and most importantly, Mrs. Wilson in our library, I get with her on a monthly basis to get district-approved, library-hosted books, so that way our fathers can read to our children on Fridays after our world-renowned High Five Friday. So what we do is we stand out in front of the gates and we give kids high five. And the reason why that resonates so much to each and every one of our members, of my brothers who couldn't be here, is because you don't know what a child went through that evening or that morning just to get to school. And so the fact that to give that kid a high five and say hi, or maybe razz him that he's a Chiefs fan, go Birds, you never know. And trust me, there's a lot. I'm also a Yankees fan, so the whole school boos me every Friday. Along with myself and countless other selfless adult roadrunners, we've been able to build a really cool community support system, not only for our children, our community, our faculty, admin, and staff at Rosedale, while maximizing the memories and the engagement with our little ones before they become big ones and they don't want to hang out with us anymore. We believe in a saying that our presence is our present. Being engaged and volunteering in the classroom, at the school, and being dads on campus, that's something you can't buy at a Best Buy. That's something you can't buy at a Target. These, folks, are the core memories that the wonderful people of the PTA, the selfless, countless volunteers, and as well as holding it down for the Dad's Club, what we provide. So I want to thank you for your undivided attention and listening for the thing that brings me great joy for this finite amount of time with our children. And if you have any questions or comments and you want to know how to start a Dad's Club at your facility or want to start a story time, come see me. We'll love to do that. Thank you all, and go Birds.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. We do not have a representative from the Child Development Program, so we're going to move on to our superintendent and cabinet reports. Ms. Berries?
Thank you. I want to again congratulate all the students with the Caring Student Award. I think it's a great award in the month of February, and it's one of the highlights of the night for me. So again, thank you for all the students who are here tonight. Student services is a really broad area. I joke that it's everything but the books, all of the other things. One of the things that we do is we take care of student health services. I thought it was really interesting because we bring a lot of contracts to the board, but even I don't always get the follow-up of some of the data. So I just wanted to share with all of you tonight something that was interesting. We brought, it's the second year that we've been doing this. It's a partnership with the LA Department of Health for screenings for students, oral health screenings. This year, we screened our kindergartners, and next year, we're expanding it for our TKers. But they sent a little data to me today, and I wanted to share that. So 14 of our schools were screened. A total of 1,080 students were eligible for this screening, and they actually screened 919 students. So it's about 85%, if I did the math right. There were about 76 absences and 85 parents opted out. Parents had the option to opt out if they wanted to. There were 3 urgent cases that they identified and 67 students with visible decay. So how they do that is they set up a little mobile unit in the classroom. The students go and they use a flashlight. They don't use any tools. And I know that I had younger children, they were kind of afraid of the dentist. So it's a really nice way to kind of get them. They just do a flashlight, see how they're doing. They get a report card and a goodie bag and they get to go. So I just wanted to share that as we don't always hear about that, but it was a great success and it was a great partnership. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berries. Mr. Clement?
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to take a minute to recognize one of our teams. This shout out today is going to go to our TK teachers of our district. You know, when TK began, LACO initiated one demonstration classroom, and it's in Downey Unified, which is down closer to the district office for the county. And since then, they've been looking for another school classroom so they can have a second demonstration classroom built. This classroom will serve as a demo classroom where they can really showcase what that environment should feel like and look like. It'll have all the integrated learning, small group reading, small group math, community building, play, really focused on those preschool TK learning foundations using the DRDP and all of the work really that our TK teachers have really been taking on and embracing. Along with Dr. Fractor, they've been going to LACO for a lot of different trainings. Dr. Fractor's really done a good job of using those dollars that we have specifically for that in some innovative ways, which has been challenging for a lot of districts. So I think LACO's really recognized that, and they've latched on to coming to see us a few times and have selected one of our classrooms to be that next demo site. So we're especially proud to have that classroom in Leah Esquenazi's classroom at Rosedale. So congratulations to really the entire TK team though, because it's really, it's been a learning curve to take that on and transition into those early learning foundations versus what we were doing, trying to extend kinder when we were given a program and no real guidelines at first. So congratulations to them and we appreciate them.
Dr. Stevenson?
Just congratulations to our Caring Students Awards winners.
Thank you. Mr. Heinlein?
Nothing to report from business.
Dr. Hawkins?
I want to thank all of our students who got the Caring Student Award and then divert the rest of our time for our discussion.
Great. Mr. Watson?
Yeah, I think for the most part, what I have to say is already agendized, so I'll leave it for then. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Trunke?
Congratulations to our Caring Student Award winners tonight. On February 7th, I was lucky enough to be principal for a day at Mountain View. I know I saw Mrs. King earlier, but thank you, Mrs. King, for a great day there. I got to visit and spend time in a lot of classrooms. Got to spend a bit of time in the library as well as with the school day cafe staff as they were preparing lunch. I attended the Asset Management Committee on February 12th, and tomorrow, for those that are so inclined, there is a dedication of the new playground in partnership with the city of Santa Clarita at Helmers. So if you get a chance to make that, that would be great. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Ms. Grease?
I think I may hold most of what I want to say for the discussions. I am going to be optimistic about the discussions and hopefully the action that's coming out of it. Again, I just want to state, to me, this is not about the behavior. I agree with you. It's not the consequence. It's about the resources and the tools that we give our teachers and our staff. And if those resources and tools are actually working and identifying what's working and what's not working. And I feel like I am appreciative to at least have this on the agenda tonight. It's taken 2 years to get onto the agenda. So I don't know how it did, but I'm thankful that it is. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you. Nothing for me. Just congratulations to our students. They're amazing. And I'm glad we have so many kind kids in our district. I think we'll move along to general functions, discuss practices and provide direction to superintendent and cabinet on consequences for students with big behaviors.
So, Mrs. Garabay and I debrief as board president on the different things that we're doing and planning for future agendas. In those discussions, it was clear to both of us that it was time for some discussion at the board level. I think as Ms. Valdez mentioned about comments, and you can see in the board item, there are possible consequences or actions that would be taken by a school district in board policy 5144. Those are actions that we take. We do look at them on a student by student basis. We've had conversations with the governing board about the use of suspension and the requirement of 48,900 and its requirement that we use other means of correction. We've also talked about, I believe it's 48,900.5, which talks about eliminating students' recess and how that is no longer allowable. Which leaves us with consequences that are rather limited as far as what we can do. We've had lots of conversation, I think, around the different ways that we address that. We've done things as a district to improve that, but I think since the pandemic, we've seen challenges that as educators, I don't think we're used to seeing. I don't think parents are seeing those same challenges the way that they used to see them. And I think we're all sort of on the back foot, if you will, with how to address them. In speaking with Mrs. Garabay, though, I've explained to her that from a district leadership perspective, we, and I'm going to include the staff and all of my site administrators, are providing what the policies, what the ed code, what our professional training, what our professional experience recommends should occur. If there is something that the governing board would like us to do differently outside of those parameters, then we would need to know what those are. I think anytime we make decisions outside of the parameters that we're given, there will be additional consequences. So again, should we make decisions to do things that we haven't been doing? I think letting our community know what that is and how those consequences will be implemented is going to be very important, because I think we'll hear from the community on that piece. I think also taking into consideration the change in student behavior, meaning will the consequence change the student behavior? And then I think when we're talking about resources, we have things in place to examine things such as curriculum, practice, those sorts of things. What we don't have the ability to do would be to make the decisions for having large-scale implementation of staffing. So for example, in order to have a room where we could send students, we would need to have a classroom teacher in that room in order to do that at a minimum. Or we would love to have a BCBA, which is behaviorist, at every school. But that would require us increasing our behaviorists by 7, I believe. Again, another cost that the board would need to consider. There are limited funds as far as the district is concerned when we make those decisions. And should those be the decisions or the recommendations from the board, certainly the cabinet and business, we will make our best effort to present that to you in a way that can accomplish that. But we are hopeful that tonight your discussion will give us direction to come back with possible practices. Not changes in policy at this point in time. I think it's very difficult to change policy when you've never implemented some of these things this way. So I would recommend that it be a practice, and we would bring that back to you for approval and adoption in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. So the reason this is on the agenda is because obviously this is very important to me. I'm a parent in the district, and I see the things I've heard from numerous parents, numerous teachers. This is not something that isn't happening. It's clearly happening. And I appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten. I think the way that I envision this is, first we talk about, what are the things that we see that could change, or the things that we want to see in practice, right? And then the second part of the conversation is, what are some of the things, because we do have a behavioral council, right? And I think it's really important, we're not experts in education. We have some here and we have some here, right? So the idea is a behavioral council really serves as that group that can help us navigate, but I still think that we have a lot of insight that we can share, and things that, because we've heard from all of you and because we're parents too, we can hopefully add some, constructive things that would be helpful and that could be used as part of this toolbox that we're creating. So I want to open it up first to talk about the vision, right? So we understand what's required, what's allowed through Ed Code. We understand what's happening out in the community at the schools. So I think, and I can start it off because obviously I put this on the agenda, so I'll at least kind of get the conversation started and then allow everybody to share their thoughts. One of the things that I've heard over and over again, and as a parent volunteer, I see this myself, I think there's a parent piece that's missing, right? So we really need to get parents engaged, and I think I heard it tonight and I've heard it before. We need parents to be engaged right away. And I'm not talking about we give Johnny, we're going to use the name Johnny today. We give Johnny 100 chances and then, we give him a consequence. I'm talking about when Johnny does something, we immediately call the parents and we say, something needs to happen. So that's number one. Something else is, we have these parent student guidebooks. We have them online. I've seen my guidebook for my school. I don't know that we utilize those right. There's an opportunity to actually have parents look at these guidebooks at the beginning of the school year to say, these are the things that are okay and these are the things that are not okay. And if something happens and your child is involved in something that shouldn't be happening, these are the consequences that are going to happen. We're going to call you right away. We're going to set up a conference with the teacher and the principal. We're going to do all these different things. But that way we're being transparent and open from day one. And I think it's something that even the teachers can support us with that, right? And the day that Johnny comes into class, there's an expectation set and we know exactly what is and isn't okay. What else? I think with our, because we are a big district, right? We have a lot of different schools. I think we need to have and I'm hopeful with this behavioral council that once we come up with these different procedures, right, that we have an understanding of this toolbox, that it's clearly communicated so that all the teachers understand what they have. Because I keep hearing about, well, I feel like my hands are tied. I can't do anything. let's untie those hands, right? Let's trust our teachers that they understand how to do things. And, you know, we have PBIS, we have SEL, no issue with that. But let's not tie people's hands so that they can't do the other things that are going to help support the behavior issues. So those are just some initial thoughts from me, but I'm going to turn it over to the board to give them an opportunity to share their thoughts as well. And again, this is the vision discussion, right? So what are the things that we want to see? The second part will be more about, you know, what are some of the consequences that we want to see as part of this? The other thing I want to mention before I turn it over to Mr. Watson is I think we need to be able to pivot, right? So I think that's important. We can't get stuck on this is how we're going to do it every single time. And I think somebody mentioned it tonight, somebody's mentioned it before. Every situation is different. So we need to treat every situation different, but still do something immediately, not wait for things to become an issue where people are throwing chairs. And me personally, if people are getting hurt, that's a whole different situation. And there should be a consequence that is appropriate for that behavior. So I'm gonna leave it there. Mr. Watson,
Okay, so we're talking vision now.
we're talking vision.
Okay, fantastic. So it's a difficult issue to tackle. For those of you that don't know, I worked in a classroom for about 20 years and struggled with some of these issues years ago prior to the pandemic, prior to a lot of the changes that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years in our classrooms. My last year in the classroom was 2014. I worry about a couple of things in engaging in this discussion tonight. Glad to have it. One, I don't want to come across as condescending to the experts who are in the classroom, who have been there the last 10 years, by us telling you what you should be doing. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you a little bit later on next month. So I don't want to engage in that, and I also don't want to undermine the hard work over the last several months of the Behavior Council. I think those are the experts that are going to inform us. So that being said, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Mr. Alexopoulos. This is about teacher training and support. I think we need to continue to love on our kids the best we can. Madam President, you said a couple of things that really resonated with me. I think we need to be quicker, more transparent, and more vocal with our communication with parents. I think we need to loop in our parents as quickly as possible, both on the side of a student that's misbehaving and the side of the students that have been affected by that. I certainly understand that, well, I'll stop right there. I think we need to loop in parents quicker. And again, I've been there. I've gone home after a long day of teaching in the classroom, completely exhausted with 2 littles of my own and dinner to cook, and a list of 3 families that I need to call. And it's not going to be a fun phone call. And you look at that list and think, okay, but I know if I don't make those phone calls, I'm the one that's going to be paying the consequences because I'm not working in partnership with my families to improve the education of their child. So I think that's extremely important. I love what you said about untying our teachers' hands. I think we need to make sure, again, it goes back to teacher training and support and the district speaking with one voice from the district level across offices to every school campus and every school administrator, BCBA, social worker, being able to understand these are the options that are available to me. Okay. But yeah, I want to hear from the Behavior Council and get our staff the support they need as quickly as possible. I'll leave it right there for now, and I'm sure we'll continue to engage.
Thank you. Mr. Trunke?
Thank you, Mr. Watson. And I just want to continue on with a little bit of what you were talking about. I think it's important that we all recognize the countless thousands and thousands of hours that have been invested by our staff, our teachers, everyone in the multi-year rollout of PBIS. And, you know, in terms of SEL, the implementation that we've had with that. I know there have been some issues with the Harmony curriculum there, and I know that we are looking at having a committee to look at possible replacements for that. Looking at some of the other things that we are constantly doing, have done to address these issues. It's not that we are not doing anything, and I think it's important to recognize specifically some of the things that we have been doing. Our annual connectedness survey, which is done every year, gives us a lot of information. Last year, we surveyed over 5,000 students, over 800 staff, 5,200 families. We get great information on their perceptions of how safe our schools are. I know we will have another connectedness survey coming up this spring. We have the Capturing Kids' Hearts program, which there was a lot of professional development on at the beginning of the year. And that work is continuing and will be expanded. There was, I forget exactly how long it was ago, where we did the clawback of mental health funds that were tied up in the SELPA that allowed us to expand all of the mental health offerings that we do for student and staff well-being. We made a lot of other staffing changes, the addition of our social workers. We have been doing self-reflection, of course, based on the connectedness survey in the evaluation process that we do each year. We did the Keenan behavioral assessment in May of last year. We did the FICMAT special education assessment in November. Both of those reports made recommendations. I don't remember, I didn't, because they weren't there were no things about programs that we have that aren't working. Most of the recommendations were primarily about continuing our programs and doing it with a clearer vision and more fidelity. So I like your comments, and I think Mrs. Garibay made the same comment about clear vision or a better overall vision for the district. All of that stuff led to a 3-year plan that was adopted by the board a number of months ago. We're in year 1 of that plan. I think that all of those more recent things led into the start, stop, and continue activity that was completed in November 2024. All of that has led to the Behavior Council being formed. I'm a little bit confused with exactly what we're supposed to be doing here tonight, because that Behavior Council's work is yet to be done. And Mrs. Garibay, as you pointed out, with the exception of Mr. Watson, who is an educator, we're not educators. And typically the recommendations come to us, not the other way around. One of the guiding principles that we have as board members, including what is in our handbook, is to recognize and appreciate the professional judgment of our staff and their commitment to our schools, our programs, our stakeholders, and our students. And it seems to me that we shouldn't be giving the Behavior Council a list of things, a list of conclusions that we want them to have. It's supposed to be a collaborative effort between the teachers, the psychologists, the behaviorists, the social workers, all working together and coming up with the recommendations that they're going to make to us. We're not looking at or proposing changes to any of our board policies, to any of our administrative regulations. Later on the agenda tonight, we have all of the school safety plans, which, detail out all of the policies and procedures that we have in place for discipline. But as I think you pointed out, it's so important to recognize, and we heard it a lot from the administrators at the special board meeting, every situation is different. We have a framework in place in terms of our policies and procedures, but every situation needs to be looked at in its own context, and different things are done with respect to each situation. I don't know how we could sit up here and say, in this situation, do this. It depends. I look forward to hearing some more discussion on this, but again, I'm a little bit confused as to what sort of recommendations we're supposed to be making.
Yeah, I think the idea is that we all sit up here, and yes, we are leading the organization, right? So we obviously have heard from parents, we've heard from teachers. There's an issue, and I appreciate, going through the list of the things that we're doing and all the accomplishments, but like, obviously there's something that we need to fix. I'm okay knowing that and doing something about it. And I think it's important to be proactive about things. I don't have to be in the class. Well, I take that back. I am in the classroom because I do volunteer at my students' school every other week. So I see things. I talk to teachers. I see the things that are happening. So I actually come from I think I have pretty good experience and exposure to be able to give like a very concrete, reasonable, thing that I think would work. I think it's important for, while we govern, that we should also have an opportunity to provide feedback, right? And I don't disagree with you. And I know we have all the experts here, and I appreciate the time that they're taking to put together this list of things. But I have ideas too, and I want to make sure that those are heard. The other thing is, so we have that list, the protocol, that Dr. Hawkins went through. But I know for a fact that a lot of those things we're not doing right now, right? So I saw there's a couple things that the ed code, right? So there's a couple different things. There's a regulation that has a couple different things that you can do, right? So there's community service, I think was one of them. There's detention. We people mentioned it today. We don't do that. I've never ever heard, and maybe I'm missing something, but I've never heard of a student getting detention. Is that an option that we should consider? Why not? Right? Like I'm open to that. Like I'm open to looking at the things that we're not doing. And again, like I know suspension is like the big scary word that nobody wants to use, but you know what? There are things that actually should be treated with suspension. I can tell you this, if my kid was getting hurt, I would have a big problem and I would be out there yelling at somebody because that's not okay. And it doesn't teach our kids. It doesn't teach them, well, number one, it makes them feel unsafe, and I'm not okay with that. And number two, we're not addressing the problem, which means, guess what? When they go to the Heart District, there's still going to be a problem. So we need to cap it when they're young and say, this is not okay. Like, and let's put all the resources, right? We have social workers, we have teachers, we have all these people we have all these resources. Let's provide those to the student, but let's not, because we want to say that we're perfect and we do everything. No, let's address it and let's actually get the parents involved, because to me, that's a big component of this. Parents need to be in part of the process. It's what is it? What's the saying? It takes a village, right? The village includes the parents, and they have to do their part, right? Because school is not a babysitting service. School is an education. It's a place where kids come to get educated, and I want to make sure that those kids feel safe. So I'm sorry, I'm taking up Miss Cooper's time. It's your turn, Miss Cooper.
A lot of what I wrote's already been said tonight, but I'm gonna go for it anyways. One of the things that came up in the last meeting was talking about the whole child. And when you're talking about vision, I was trying to think of, what that means to me. I know it would take the input of a lot of other people, but one of the things that came to mind is everybody that talks about Santa Clarita Elementary says once a bulldog, always a bulldog. And I would want every child to feel that way about their school and about our district. I want it to feel like home to them. And of course that means safety. So I do want to thank the cabinet for the presentation on the 5th. I think that it wasn't what everyone expected, but I think the board is remiss in not telling you exactly what we expected. So I want to thank you for the presentation. It was a good presentation, and apologize for the board not telling you what exactly we wanted. I also appreciate Dr. Hawkins doing the start, stop, and continue, and especially going into the classrooms now to teach for a couple of hours. And Ms. Garibay and I kind of talked about this a little bit. I'm reading a new book. It's called Reset by Dan Heath. I strongly recommend it. But he talked about, you know, a principal going into the classroom. And I've been in lots and lots of classrooms, but I think the time that was most meaningful is the time that I spent, you know, 40 minutes in the classroom rather than going in and being there for 5 minutes and leaving. So, and I was supposed to be principal a day for the day at your school, and they changed it twice, and I just lost track. So I'm still going to come and do that because, you know. So I think that that would be good for all of us. I really appreciate that we're looking at short day kindergarten and TK. And I know I say this all the time and everybody laughs at me, but I think we should bring back naps. But since I don't think that we can do that, you know, I was comparing my day to a child's day. And like, if I get upset with somebody, I can just walk off, I can drive off, I can do whatever I want. And obviously we can't let the kids do whatever they want, but a quiet time, I think would like let them reset. So that's my word of the evening. And then the other thing that I kind of thought of is, you know, we have a lot of specialists pulling the kids out for different reasons, including behavior, but maybe we could have someone go in and give the teacher a 15-minute break and let the teacher spend one-on-one time with that kid. Because one of the things that Dr. Hawkins said that stuck with me is that behavior is communication. You know, if a child's acting up, then there's some need that's not being met. But if you're in a classroom with 28 kids, it's really hard to talk to that kid and find out what's really going on. But if someone else can come in and let you go out and you can just focus on that kid for 10 or 15 minutes, then the child will feel heard and maybe you'll figure out what's really going on. And of course, I've never been in a classroom as a teacher, so I understand that there's, you know, limitations, and I just think anything can be done because, you know, but it was just an idea. This has more to do with consequences, so I have to wait on it, right? Okay. I was reading, part 2. I was reading the policy, and one of the parts of policy 5144 states, at all times, the safety of students and staff providing interventions and supports to students, as well as the maintenance of an orderly school environment, shall be priorities in determining appropriate discipline. And that was the closest thing that I could find to what I was looking for. And what I was looking for is something that talks about all the other kids. I read a lot, so if I missed it, I would love for, you know, admin or anyone to like tell me where it is, because that's the question. And you know, Dr. Hawkins knows I've asked this, you know, over and over, like, what about the other kids? And it's, so I guess my question is, I know that by law we can't lay hands on a child, you know, obviously, and I think that that's part of the reason that when a child is, you know, throwing things, that we have to remove all of the other kids instead of removing that child. But it should only happen once. And I think that suspension is more of an inconvenience for the parents than a punishment for the kid.
I think that's the
But
point, though.
maybe
I think that's
well, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe that's a good thing, because it's, you know, I mean, I think like absolutely parents need to be involved. I think that the parents who are the most involved, we have the least problem with their kids. So I guess a question that I would ask, and maybe this is something for the behavior council, is how do we pull in the parents that don't want to be pulled in? And how can we make them accountable? And how can we enforce that? I mean, we can suspend the kid, but you know, if they're just going to sit at home alone, like that's kind of terrible. And we don't want to continue to suspend the kid over and over because then that hurts them. But, you know, a couple of days of a parent having to call in sick to stay home with their kid, like maybe then they would realize that it was serious. So I guess that's my question. I mean, I know that there's lots of laws limiting what we can do. I mean, I think back to when I was in school and I still remember Frankie Olds and Mrs. Spakey like grabbing him by the hair and shaking his head. And I don't think we should go back to that by any means, but I do think that, and okay, this like, please hear this the way that I intended. I love the idea of restorative practices because I think every child is a good kid on the inside. I really do. And I don't think that punishment is the answer. But I remember reading a lot about ADHD when my son was little because he had ADHD. And not to brag, but he's been recruited by a department and the city attorney from that department is offered to be his reference. So for anybody that's not in law enforcement, you don't realize what a big deal that is, but you know, just have to brag publicly about my child. Anyways, the point is I read a lot about ADHD and I know I don't think that this is much of a problem as it was back then, but one of the things that he liked to do is play with his pencil and teacher got upset with him. I'm like, okay, even I know all you have to do is give him a rubber pencil. But the thing that came up over and over is natural consequences. So when you do something, there's going to be a natural consequence. It doesn't have to be a punishment, but it's a consequence. And that's true for all of us. So there should be consequences. And well, now I'm on part 2. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cooper. Ms. Grease?
Oh, nowhere to start. So I'm just going to read something. So the mission statement of Saugus Union School, I think it's important just to level set. This is our mission statement as a district. The Saugus Union School District, in partnership with the home and community, is committed to excellence in elementary education. Our vision statement is excellence in elementary education. I don't think it's about resetting a vision. I think it's actually holding the district accountable for the vision. And what I still feel that we're failing on, and again, I don't want this to be a lecture because it feels like a lecture. It's supposed to be a discussion. It feels as though we're not addressing the root problems that help to form the vision statement and help support the vision statement. Ingrid, PBIS is not working, right? Aspects of MTSS are not working. We have heard these things for months, and we are failing to actually talk about, okay, great. What about PBIS isn't working? What about MTSS isn't working? What about the ODRs aren't working? I think in order to help support the vision statement, we need the data. We are so good at pulling the data, but we're not talking about the data to level set and make sure that we're standing for the vision statement. So I agree with you, Mr. Chunky, for once, that I don't know the purpose of today because I want the data. I want to sit at a table with Ingrid or Michelle or Lynn. I want to sit at a table and actually literally go through, this is what's working, this is not what's working, how do we address it? To me, it's not crafting a new vision statement. It's upholding the vision statement that we have as a district that has been in place for years, and we're not living up to that. So happy to have the discussions of whatever, because everything that everyone's talking about is great. It sounds more action orientated, which isn't the purpose based on the agenda. So all of this is great. We all want consequences, right? Regardless of what that consequence is. Suspension, detention, a note home, a call home, in the principal's office, I don't know. So I don't think anyone's negating that fact, but it's how do you address the root problem that we are seeing, right? That's what I think we have to talk about and what we continue to not talk about. So to me, our vision statement is excellence in elementary education. How do we get there from a behavioral standpoint, a resource and a tool standpoint, an education standpoint? We're really good at winning awards, right? So let's win an award on behavior. Let's put practices and policies. Let's change board policy so that we can win all of these awards that we all love to win, right? But are they helpful? Are they meaningful? Are they worth it? So again, I'm happy to engage in an actual conversation and not just lecturing everybody and really talking about the root causes. We've heard for months, we've heard 2 years, right? I talked about an incident at North Park that literally happened. I was literally there for a second offense and got called out as a liar. It is literally happening. I've seen it with my own eyes. It is time that we actually address it and talk about it. So I don't know if that happens at the next behavioral meeting. I would actually like to propose maybe there needs to be a behavioral committee where you have board members on the committee, right? There's plenty of other districts that do this, right? They have committees where it's both teachers, staff, district, parents, everybody is together. So there's actual meaningful conversation and the board members come out of it with real meaningful dialogue that they're hearing first person, not as a game of telephone. Because I think that's the other problem too, is we're not getting real feedback. I'm getting it from the teachers 100%, but it is not what I'm hearing on this side. It is very different. So I think for us to be able to literally hear the direct feedback of my child was kicked in the stomach, my child's hair got pulled, my child was the one that threw the chair. Like, I think those are really important for us to hear and not have it be sugar coated. And I think that's, a little bit of what's happening because I do hear both sides.
I'd like to respond to that. I think you're absolutely right. We did hear and we've heard before that PBIS doesn't work. There's a variety of reasons that any prescribed program doesn't work. And so I think we need to explore that statement a little bit. I think we need to gather the data, like you said. Now, there is a data tool that PBIS has, and that's something that we've got tonight on our comprehensive safety plans. PBIS is measured through a tiered fidelity inventory. The Keenan report indicated that PBIS isn't being implemented at our schools with fidelity. I'd like to see the results of that report. I found it online. It's a really, 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 really long document, but it's got some simple squares where we can crunch data and see how well PBIS is being implemented. And I think while it may take a little while to gather that data, if we haven't done so already, I think it would be extremely valuable. I'm hoping that the Behavior Council is looking into that. But I think it would be very easy to, by expert practitioners, those that have been trained, those that are trying to implement it, to bring a report back and say, hey, it's working when it's being implemented properly, or it's not working and that's why it's not being implemented, or somewhere in between. And I think we can crunch that data down to some of those simple statements. And if it is the case that we're doing it and it's not working, that's why we have to try to move away, then let's talk about, okay, then where do we go? Or, well, I see it working in my classroom because I'm implementing it, but, and it is going to take some folks around to be brave and say, you know what, I've tried it, it works. I'm not seeing it implemented well by my colleagues, and that's why it's not working in their classroom. I've implemented programs similar to PBIS, not PBIS, where I've seen that, where it didn't work in my classroom. And it wasn't until I received the training that I needed that it actually kind of switched. I've seen other programs where, no, I've tried that. I've done it the way you taught me to do it, and it doesn't work. I need something else. So I think we need to figure out what's the case with PBIS. And there's a tool that gathers that data. Love to see the data.
And
Ms. Garabay,
Yeah.
can I jump in? Okay.
Go ahead.
Just on the purpose of the meeting, since it seems to be unclear, I think it's like the board is supposed to set the vision. So I think what we're here for is to say to the cabinet and the superintendent, like, this is the direction that we want to go. So to Mr. Watson's point, we have heard complaints about PBS. So we need to make the decision whether to keep PBIS and try to do it with more, what was the word?
Fidelity.
Fidelity, thank you.
Doing it right.
Or scrap it and find a different program. And I don't know if PBIS and Capturing Kids' Hearts are the same kind of program or if those are two different things, but but capturing kids' hearts seems to be working well in the schools that it has been implemented in. So one of the directions we as a board could give, if we all agree on that, is let's get capturing kids' hearts in all the rest of the schools. And I know that the plan is to do that in the PD days at the beginning of next year. Is there a way that we can do that earlier?
Right.
So that would be something that, you know, like we could give a direction. And then I know we need to wait for the behavioral council to like, you know, make recommendations, because again, I'm like, other than Mr. Watson, we're not professionals, but we can, you know, give the direction of like more immediate action, you know, like, I mean, I understand that, you know, K-3 kids, like, they don't have emotional regulation. I get that. But at the same time, you know, I'm with you, like, if a kid is being violent in the classroom, send them home. But then my question for that is, at some point they have to come back, and depending on how the parents are working with them, then there's a good chance it's going to happen again. So what are we allowed to do then? Like, what do we do then?
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to happen again. You know, if it happens the first time, like, you don't know a kid's necessarily going to do that. But and then the other thing that I didn't, that has to do with vision, sorry, I have ADHD, so like I'm all over the place. But Mrs. Garibay recommended a book to me a while ago called Upstream, and I was applying that to this. So going back to the teachers having like one-on-one time with some of their students, upstream thinking would be like, you know, the teachers are going to be the people that know the kids better than anybody else. And also, like, they've known hundreds of kids. So there's a really good chance that if they have the opportunity to sit with a kid and get to know them, they're going to get a feel for what they like, or how they react or whatever. And so then if you see a kid like behaving in a certain way, like you're going to know that something's coming if you know the kid well enough. And then maybe you can, you know, call someone in ahead of time before they start freaking out, or
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
See, now we're having dialogue. So it sounds like you're more about setting a parameter of what teachers can and can't do, rather than step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Is that what I'm taking from what you just said?
I don't know.
But
I want to make it clear,
it's part of
I am
the
not,
discussion, though. It's like, are we as a board, is it about setting the vision, right? And a parameter of like, this is what we should be doing, right?
Let me answer that question, okay? So the reason we're doing this today is because my job, our job, is to be responsive, okay? So we've had several meetings, several parents have reached out. Our job is to be responsive. So if people are telling us that something is happening, then we have to be responsive to that. This is not to set a like a vision, but we're not changing the way that what we're doing is we're saying this is important and it's not okay for it to continue and we need to see a change. That's the reason that we're all here. And the reason that we're all talking about it is because as board members, we should care and we should be able to provide suggestions and thoughts. It's not just like, this is a collective effort, in my opinion. We all have ideas and suggestions. We've all sat through these things. We've heard things, right? So why wouldn't we be a part of that process?
I'm not saying that we're not. What I'm trying to say is that one of the things that I'm trying to say is I am not an educator. I am not legally, I don't know what I can and can't do. I would suspend, right? I would suspend if someone's throwing a chair.
So then let's say that. So
But
say,
can I do
hey,
that? Right? Can I do that? And what are the guidelines for me to be able to do that? I'm looking for discussion with them to know, can I do X or can I do Y? What can I do?
So I think the intent, right? So and that's why we have a behavioral council. So the intent, or what I think will happen is a behavioral council is going to put together this list of items, list of ideas. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about those items. And that's part of the conversation, right? So you're right. We're not the education experts. Dr. Hawkins and the cabinet are. So they're going to tell us, hey, this is allowable, this isn't. But based on what I'm seeing, like pretty much all the things that we've talked about are all things we can do. We just haven't done them, right? And now that we're making it clear that we're not going to just, pretend like nothing's happening, we're actually going to do something. It's going to be clear to everybody else that that's what we're okay with. Yes.
Can I answer this?
Yes, go ahead.
So just to answer your question about suspension. Yes, we can suspend students. It is up to the school site to make that determination. 48900 suggests and requires that other means of correction are used in lieu of suspension. So when a student, especially students of young ages, does something like this, we are using other means of correction first. If the board desired, or let me say it this way. There have been instances where staff have made decisions about other means of corrections where I have even agreed that the child needs to be suspended. We have debates about that to ensure that we are not crossing over the line to put the district in legal jeopardy by not implementing 48900. However, there is a gray area there. So if the board feels that that is something that would be beneficial in the case of these big behaviors, when you're 5 and you turn over a desk the first time, that we, I don't want to say ignore, but that our other means of correction is suspension.
I'd like to speak to Mrs. Grease's question directly. And it goes to what you're saying now. I've done all these things as an educator.
So have I.
I've requested students be suspended. As a principal, I've suspended students. But I would not favor a policy that says if a child does X, we do Y, because children are individuals.
Okay, great.
So I would like to see something similar to, he's gone. Mr. Uncliffe said it this evening. Kids are different. People are different. They need different things. I think it's about teachers building relationships with their students and with their families and working to develop, in some cases, an individual behavior plan. To allow a child to engage in extreme behaviors that endanger others in the classroom? No. But it's about teaching all children. And I keep looking at you because I want to put myself in your shoes. Because I do fall on that side of children should not be excluded from the classroom. Our district is performing academically incredibly well. And I favor a classroom where special education students are included, where, Mrs. Joseph, you know me well, you know where I come from. But your child needs to be safe and needs to be comfortable, welcome in their classroom. Every child does. And so there are times that we have to make those hard decisions. It needs to be done by a warm, caring community that knows our children, all of our children, so that your child can be safe, so that the child that injured your child can learn that that's not acceptable, how they've hurt another human being, and how to make it right, rather than learn that they've misbehaved and that's who they are. Because then the behavior escalates. It's hard. It's really hard. But we've seen our teachers are dedicated to it. I wish I had an answer, but I think we're getting towards it. But that's where I stand in terms of
Yeah,
prescriptive policies.
I think it's, for me, it's just like, I don't want to dictate, right? We're not in the classroom. We're not, yeah.
I'm waiting for Mrs. Garabay to recognize me.
You can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to what Mr. Watson says and talk about the collaborative nature, not only of an individual incident where a behavior is recognized and what do we do about it, as being a collaborative effort between the teacher, the administrator, the behaviorist, the psychologist as needed, and at the appropriate time to involve the parents, but also from a standpoint of general policies and procedures, the collaborative nature of what I think the Behavior Council needs to do and look at the policies and procedures or make recommendations to us about things that they would like to see changed, or at least get clarifications that they all fit within the framework that we've established. We talked a bit about that at the special meeting. I think that stuff needs to be organic and come from that collaborative effort between those experts, and it not be seen as some sort of, dictate by the governing board or micromanaging by the governing board. I think we've heard that comment on a number of different things about how abhorrent micromanaging is. I mean, obviously, we are an organization, and there is a hierarchy to all of that. But I think especially when we're talking about all of this stuff and recognizing the incredible work that our teachers do, they have to be a significant part of that collaborative effort in terms of the Behavior Council.
I agree, we don't want to be dictators, but and we should never not listen to the admin and the teachers. But at the end of the day, we were elected to give direction. We were elected to tell everybody what to do. So I think it is incumbent on us to give guidance. And so, like, I agree with you, it shouldn't be a hard and fast when it's X, do this. But I would say that we should encourage, like in the case of a child being kicked, suspend. Like if you are physically hurting another child, like, I don't know, like if we put it in policy or we just give guidance, but if a child is hurting another child, I know, suspend. Like, I don't want them in the school, at least for a little while.
I want them
That-
out in school as
Absolutely.
quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I want it restored.
Yeah.
And I know I'm.
Well, I mean, I
interrupting,
agree with you,
And-
yeah.
but I also want like
Mm.
quick and
Before we,
and-
so,
Still thinking of your child. I want that person a better person when they come back.
so.
but I want them out for at least a day.
At least a day. So let's move on to the second part of the topic, and let me just explain a little bit. So, again, we don't get a lot of opportunities to provide our feedback. And to me, it's very important for us to be able to provide insight. I don't disagree, and I'll say that 100 times. You guys are the experts, the teachers, the social workers, the behaviorists, you guys are all the experts. And I trust that you know what you're doing and that you're going to give us some really good options. But I don't want to, like you said, Mrs. Cooper, I don't want to take away from the fact that we're here for a reason. We were elected to govern and to provide direction. So, sometimes we hear a lot of negative, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. Well, then tell me what you do like. And tell me what you would suggest, right? So I don't shy away from that. If I don't like something, the number one thing I'm going to ask you for is a solution. So give me a solution. Don't just tell me the problem. Tell me how you would suggest to fix it. Doesn't matter if you're not a teacher. Doesn't matter if you're not in the classroom. How would you fix it? That's what I'm looking for.
I
okay?
wrote down all 10 of your things, Ingrid. I just want you to.
And so we're going to move on to topic B. The possible consequences to consider. So I think I was pretty clear. I think the parents need to be involved, and that's a big part of it. From day one, from the first occurrence, they need to be at the school. Something needs to happen immediately. Depending on what the situation is, if it requires a suspension, let's not be afraid of that. If it's something else, then let's make it more age appropriate, logical, right? Not everything is a huge suspension type of thing. Some things are literally, let's have a conversation with Johnny so he understands what the expectations are and what's okay and what isn't okay. And really what I'm looking for this behavioral council to create is a toolbox of things, right? So it's a bunch of different ideas and suggestions that are all different and unique. And again, with the understanding that maybe it's not going to be prescriptive and, for this situation, we handle it in this way, because every situation is different and we have to treat every situation differently. But I think the message, I want the message to be clear that we don't just stand around and not do anything. We will do something.
But I guess my follow-up is at what point though? right? Because today we're not actioning anything. We have the behavioral council Thursday, right? I'm just responding to what Dr. Hawkins said earlier. It's
Mhm.
about, right? So when is it going to happen? Because I feel like, again, this is just another conversation, another
Right.
lecture. Like,
So-
when are we
I
going to
think
action?
Okay, hold on,
actually
hold on.
providing some
Hold-
direction. I mean, I
Exactly.
think-
So did we not do this right after the last meeting where everybody was upset? Did we not get this on the agenda right away? Does that, right? Well, because we have meetings every 2 weeks, right?
That's
but we're
that's my
here, but
point,
we're
is
here.
It's the implementation of it.
Right.
So when is
And
it going
so,
to be
so the
implemented?
implementation is going to be really important and it's going to be swift the same way, right? Because again, a lot of the things that we're going to probably hear about are things that are logical and that we could be doing now. So well, and thank, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, Mrs. Grease. So I'm hoping that we all agree that once we come up with this toolbox and once the behavioral council presents to us, that the idea is not to sit on things. I don't sit on things. I don't know if you guys notice that, but I don't. I make things happen. So the idea would be immediately, right? This is what we're going to do. And then the nice thing is starting next year, we're going to have some different things that we can do so that from day one, people understand what the expectations are.
So
I think though that I mean, yes, we're gonna hear from the behavioral council and we're not gonna change everything tonight, but we can give some direction tonight. I mean, we can say this is the opinion of the board. Like we want to lean towards suspension when there's violence against another child. Like we could say that tonight as long as we all agree on it.
If a child is getting hurt or it's something violent, like I have no issue with suspension, things like that.
Is that something that I mean, I know
First offense.
this goes to
First
the next
offense.
part.
Well, then I think we need to hear, I know that this is, student suspension is an item on our dashboard. And it's something that we measure for all of our students. And then it's something that we measure for all of our significant groups. So should we have a significant spike in suspensions, Dr. Hawkins, Mr. Clement, what are the repercussions as a district? So we get a yellow, an orange, or red on our dashboard. What does that mean? How does that impact the district?
So if we currently are blue on the dashboard, I think I provided the
Blue's good.
board with the information about all of the districts in the valley, like our counterparts that are elementary, we are also blue. We do have some areas of red or orange. Every school district does. Those are areas where I guess you would say overuse of suspension is being marked to occur. When that occurs, whether it's for the entire district or for a particular subgroup of students, we have to address it through steps in our LCAP. Should that continue over multiple years, the monitoring from the state would increase.
Wait, say that one more time.
The monitoring from the state would increase and they could put requirements on how we're spending our different funding, making sure that we are addressing it and moving that group or the district as a whole from orange or red to green.
And what's the funding that they could restrict or monitor more? What?
LCAP.
The LCAP funds. And is the is the dashboard just other than the state dictating potentially what we could use the funds for, just monitoring that? Is it just how I'm doing in the valley? Like, what do I care if it goes from blue to orange?
Well, I think that's the question for the board tonight.
Like,
Do-
is it
do
just
you
optics?
care?
I literally don't care. I personally don't care. To me, it's a contest. It's a
So in our professional training.
popularity contest.
In fairness, in the professional training of all of us, we have been expected to show those improvements and move our statistics, if you will, from a not positive area to a more positive area. So I think that's one of the things when Mrs. Garibay and I were talking about our response. And I think I even said it to you that night that my hands feel tide sometimes. There are times where I feel like some serious suspension or serious things need to happen. I have been seeing in going to school sites and specifically going into classrooms with students who are exhibiting these behaviors so that I can have that experience of what's been going on, not only with the student, but what's going on with staff in response to it. I think we could do a phenomenally better job of directly involving parents. I think as I talked with Mrs. Garibay about this item, there's a piece that I think our site administrators have their hands, they feel tied. They are talking with parents, but I think in some cases, they don't always feel that they can make a demand on a parent. I do think in some instances, they may decide that they want to suspend, but they don't feel like that will be the piece that's acceptable. So in speaking with Mrs. Garibay, I said, well, we're following what Ed Code says, we're following what we're required to do. Again, professionally trained, following the Ed Code, doing all of the things that we're supposed to be doing. We would need the board to say exactly what you just said, Mrs. Grease, that you are, that all of those metrics that we're supposed to be looking at, those particular ones, and I'm not pointing you out because Mrs. Cooper said it, and I think even to a degree, Mr. Watson said it. Those don't matter. We want this kind of result. And I can't bring that to you if I'm recommending what we're doing here, because it goes against my training, the Ed Code piece, the responsibility I would have as a superintendent to the district to have those dashboards and things be positive. If this sort of action would cause that, as you were saying, Mr. Watson, to suddenly become red or orange because we've now summarily increased our suspensions, and you're okay with us having that monitoring and having that be public, then we can move in that direction. I think to Mrs. Cooper's point, you use it on the first time, and that's a response. But we know from the research and from experience that repeated suspension doesn't always change behavior. And as you said, they come back to the same school in the same classroom. So is there going to be that discussion of what the next possible response would be should the suspension, I mean, we can use up to 10 days, be used and the behavior isn't changing?
And that's why I just feel like the suspension isn't the answer, right? I think that to me, the answer is looking at the entire picture of what isn't working that is potentially attributing a student to get to that point of potential suspension. It's not it's not about the suspension, right? It's, do we have the systems in place that are going to correct the situation well before it even gets to this point? And that is my point that I'm trying to make is, to me, it's not about suspension. It's not about the behavior. It's what is working and what is not working. And to me, that should be the priority. It should literally be looking at all of the program listed out, all of the programs 1 through 20, whatever the case may be, and going through one by one and getting teacher feedback, CSEA feedback, admin feedback, cabinet, everybody's bases, special ed, like everybody, and identifying what are the things. 10 out of the 20 don't work. Okay, great, let's pivot. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not specifically up here going to say like suspension for everything, because I just don't believe in that. I believe in looking at a bigger picture solution that then trickles down and allows the teachers to have autonomy and a guardrail of how to assess certain situation. The framework that we're talking about is not working. So the framework that's in place needs to be fixed, and suspension or expulsion, things, that's 1% of the problem. So how do you address 99% of what the teachers are experiencing?
I think Mrs. Oh,
Sorry.
I thought she was asking.
Oh, I had an opinion. So,
Okay.
well, I think
This
it's-
is really supposed to be about you guys.
I know, that's why I'm
Well, I
like, I'm a
think that it's-
little, I'm a
It's
little
pretty
torn.
clear for like that capturing kids' hearts works. It's pretty clear that most people are not happy with PBIS. So like I said before, I think it's time to either figure out that it's not being fidelitous, or dump it and get a new program because the bottom line is like if the kids are emotionally dysregulated and they're not learning how to be emotionally regulated, then that would be step one, in my opinion. So if PBS isn't the answer, then we need to get a different program. So that would be a direction that the board could give.
I think it's important to recognize that the Capturing Kids' Hearts program, I don't think is supposed to be a replacement for.
Yeah, I think it's two
PBIS.
different things. I'm just
It's two
saying,
different
this one's
things.
working, so
Um,
let's keep going. This one's not working, let's replace it.
Well, I think
And
they
I
do
don't,
two
I
different
don't want you
things.
to like go crazy overboard with suspensions, but I also want you all to know that, or I think that the board would want you to know that in a situation that there's violence against another child, if you suspend, we have your back. If it turns green and then orange or yellow, whatever color it is, we still have your back. Because at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for the kids. Whatever the dashboard says, if we have to deal with the state, like whatever. So we have your back. That's the bottom line. If you guys need to spend, we have your back.
And then I think another thing that's important in following along on all of that is to understand all of the different feedback loops that we already have in place through the LCAP process, through meet and confer, the start, stop, and continue, which was not just this one from the last November, but I think those happen on a fairly periodic basis. So there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot and lots of parent engagement events, the coffees with the principal. And a lot of this stuff, I think, especially with parents, is stuff that if there are more opportunity, but better opportunities for that engagement. I know we can schedule the events, we can broadcast out that information, but getting parents to actually come to those events that aren't the small group of parents that regularly goes to all of those events would be an important thing. And to recognize that although Mrs. Grease, you think that this is something that is in a vacuum, all of these other opportunities for feedback exist and have existed. And we use the information from all of those opportunities to help inform us, and Cabinet uses them to help inform them in their recommendations to us and the decisions that we make as a board.
So we've had the connectedness survey for 2 years. We have had the STA survey. We have had the CSEA survey. We have had the start, stop, and continue, and we have had the Keenan report all over the span of 2 years. That is a lot of data that we haven't done anything with.
I disagree with that.
We knew.
I think we've done a lot with it.
Maybe we've done a lot, but apparently the community doesn't think so. So whatever we're doing is not having an impact on the overall climate within the school. So maybe we're focusing on the wrong areas and not listening to the teachers who are saying this. We're not focusing on it. We're not focusing on the Designee. Nobody wanted it, but we still did it, right? We spent the money and we did it. We surveyed 20 teachers, 30 teachers, and got a 20% response rate that said nobody wanted it and we still did it. So my point is, again, it's the framework. We have all of this data, but yet again, 2 years later, we're only here. We're only here. But we've known for a while, teachers are unhappy, the students, understand that kids don't have consequences and they don't like it, they don't feel safe at school. We've had all of this data. So we're not focusing on the things that we need to be focusing on, and we're focusing on something else. We're focusing on the blue, right? The blue chart, the popularity chart, right? So I'm not negating all of the work that the district has been doing, but what I am trying to address is at least the 2 years that I've been on this board and literally hearing the same thing every 2 weeks. We're not addressing it. So we have to address
We
it.
are addressing it. We're addressing it right now.
Right, 2
All
years
of us are
later.
coming up
2
with-
I
years
think
Okay.
we're a little off topic and off
I'm not
agenda.
gonna let it go until the teachers
Off
feel that they're
agenda.
supported.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was elected for.
Okay, so let's.
And that's what we're doing.
Circle back. Let's
Great.
circle back. So the last part of the conversation is to talk about any ideas that we have that we want to make sure are included as part of the behavioral council. Does anybody have any suggestions?
I think the behavioral council should include board. I think it should be a committee with board members. I think there's pros to having board members on the committee. So I would like to make that recommendation. I would also like to make the recommendation of making sure that we have enough parents from different avenues, different, classifications, different grades. I would like to make that recommendation.
But do you have any recommendations of things that you want included in as tools that they can use?
I think parents need to be informed from day one, even if
Perfect.
it's a minor infraction, they need to be involved from day one. It needs to be a phone call. It can't be an email. It can't be a letter because those kids are not taking that stuff home and parents are not opening up their email boxes. It needs to be a literal phone call.
Agreed. Anybody else have any suggestions or thoughts?
I would like to know how we can, I don't want to say require, but parents that don't get involved, how we can pull them in, or if there's anything that we can mandate or.
I think
It's not, it's not supposed to be an open conversation, but thank you. I appreciate your feedback. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
And then, I said this earlier, I think that the teachers should have, rather than pulling the kids out, the teachers should have time to spend more individual time with, well, ideally with all of the kids, but, the reality is it's gonna be, the troublemakers who are gonna get the attention, but it should be all of them. And usually the troublemakers are highly intelligent children that aren't being pushed hard enough. But it's hard with 28, 32 kids in a classroom.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Mr. Trunky or?
I was just going to add, I think we need to be careful about the involvement of board members in the committee, both
Right.
for purposes of timing those
It's
meetings
transparency.
around when, if those meetings have to be agendized and all of the things that go along with it becoming a board meeting versus a meeting that is really about the collaboration that needs to take place between the district staff, the teachers, the administrators, the behaviorists, the psychologists, the social workers. And I think that's the most important thing that needs to exist without, the oversight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trunky. Mr. Watson?
Yeah, just a couple things, and I sort of said it already, but just to sum up, if we're gonna suspend a child, I don't disagree with that if that's something that's merited. I think the dashboard is there for a reason. It's more than a popularity contest. It helps us as board members and our community monitor how schools are doing. And so if we do see an increase in suspensions, it's not gonna make me happy because it's gonna mean more kids are out of school. They're missing instruction. I understand some kids need to not be in school today. I get that. I also want to make sure that we're not having highly disparate data, right? That we're not suspending those kids, and you can insert whatever those kids are, because then we get into some serious issues. And then I think probably pretty much everybody in this room is a parent, and you all understand this. It is important to have in our toolbox as we're raising young people, as parents and as teachers and administrators. It's important that we have in our toolbox things that we can go to when a child misbehaves. We need to know how to respond to that. And I think our staff needs some support with that. That being said, research goes back decades to indicate we all pretty much do the same stuff when a child misbehaves. What makes the difference is what we do before the child misbehaves and after the child misbehaves. And so I think a large part of the support and training that we give our staff needs to focus on that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Dr.
I just
Hawkins.
add
I'm,
one
I'm,
little.
I feel like I'm being really vague this evening, and it's because it's a complex issue. It really is. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't disagree about the dashboard. I just hope that we can convey that while we do want to stay blue in the dashboard, at the end of the day, we trust you to do what's right, and regardless of the dashboard.
Thank you.
Right, I don't trust. I don't trust.
Okay, it's not meant to be a back and forth conversation. I'm sorry, it just, go ahead, Dr. Hawkins.
I think I want to just make a comment about the teachers. You know, we talk up here a lot about their expertise and what it is that they're doing, and I agree with all of those things. The one thing that I struggle with as an educator, and I'm going to take off my superintendent's hat, but as a classroom person, is I don't think anybody in our schools are teaching our students to have some of these big behaviors. I'm not certain where they're coming from. I have a lot of theories. I've been doing a lot of research. I think behaviors are learned over a long period of time. And I want to remind everybody that when the teachers are in the classrooms and they're trying to address these are things that they didn't create. They didn't expect. They don't endorse. And they don't appreciate. And so I don't know what this particular answer is. I do think, as Mr. Watson just said, it's a very complex problem, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the teachers are doing all of their work, but they didn't endorse this. They didn't create this. This student, for whatever reason, because of their personal background, because of something that happened at recess, something that happened at home the night before, as you heard our parent from Rosedale mention. Something happened with this child and it caused them to have this sort of response. I know that I want all of the kids to be safe, and in doing that, you have to address both sides. But I just really want to remind everybody that the teachers are doing the very best that they can. And I know that it is very difficult to deal with those kids. I know what it's like to be locked in a room because of a lockdown at a school with a child who bites and throws things and kicks chairs and growls. I've witnessed what our teachers are facing and what they believe they're supposed to be doing to engage or remedy the situation, and what they might actually be able to be doing. And I think there's 400 of them. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of time, which I know we don't necessarily have. But I know that they are working on it, and I know that we are working on it, and we're trying to make the best decisions for all of the kids. So I think this is just a hugely complex problem that I'm fully prepared to work with parents, teachers, anyone who wants to work on the problem. But I do think it's not as simple as you were, and you weren't saying it was simple, Mrs. Cooper, but how do you have a family who may be in crisis themselves and their student is now in crisis? Where is that accountability? And we can have the pieces in place and the people in place and those sorts of things, but that's not necessarily going to have the problem itself end.
The district liaisons, I know they focus on chronic absenteeism. Can we connect with, do they ever connect with the parents on behavioral issues? I mean, is there a way
I'm
to?
going to turn down to
Are you
staff on that.
asking about the parent liaisons?
Yeah. I mean, what do they do beside, are they solely focused on chronic absenteeism, or they do other things as well?
Not there.
Are you talking about our parent liaisons
Yeah.
or school social workers?
No, apparently.
Yeah,
The ones that are paid, right?
Are you asking if they engage with parents with students with behaviors that?
Yeah.
I think they aren't behavior experts.
Right.
I think their special skill set is really the outreach of a parent and really how to sort of break down something to a parent so they feel more comfortable. Or they may have some special topics that they're presenting on, but they really aren't the ones that are the experts in the behavior. They may talk through a situation and a parent may be uncomfortable with going into a meeting or how that might be. And so really engaging that parent in that way so they're prepared for that meeting. I think that's one way that they're used.
But they might be really good at taking a training that the district is going to put on, or the social workers maybe are planning, and getting awareness about it, and getting some of
Yes.
those parents that might not be aware to come.
So can we use them to pull those parents in? I mean, if,
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
if somebody's at your door, you can't ignore them. Like
Yeah.
you can ignore letters from the school, but yeah, can
It's a
we?
good suggestion.
So
Okay, so
you're
I think,
talking a home visit.
yeah.
I-
Using our parent liaisons as a,
Just another way to bridge
as a
the gap.
liaison.
Like a counselor, like a school counselor?
No, to encourage
They
other
don't
parents.
necessarily have probably the home visit within their realm, especially, it's not something we recommend on their own. But I think we have school personnel that would be qualified and able to do that part, and then they could follow up with the talking
I
to
know
them
that's
about
a
coming and the
huge
invitations,
task,
and,
but
they do, that's kind of their specialty,
Right.
is getting people to come and getting them involved.
Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, so we're going to move on to the consent calendar. I think I really appreciate everyone's feedback, and I know we talked about this for a long time. I think it was a topic that we needed to spend some time on. I know we're going to talk about it again in the near future, but I appreciate everyone's.
so do we have some?
Yeah, like, what's the
consensus and
action?
So the action
guidance
is,
that we're
yes,
gonna-
so the action is the behavioral council is going to come back. They're going to put together the list of toolbox, or the list of things, right, that we're going to consider. We're going to talk through those items. They're going to present for us, and then we're going to go from there.
And
And
then
then
so
tonight-
present at the next meeting, at the next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay? All right. Moving on to the consent calendar. Are there any items to remove from the consent calendar? Or do we need to take a break?
Oh,
No, go ahead.
well, I was gonna request that item 4F2, the comprehensive school safety plans for 2025-26 be removed.
4F2. Okay. All right, so can I get approval of the
Oh,
consent calendar?
And I would ask that item 4D5 be removed, please.
And 4D5.
The Brit West soccer.
Okay. You removed Brit West soccer.
You can ask them to approve the rest of the calendar.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the rest of the calendar, and then we take those two individual items separately?
Move to approve the consent calendar minus those two items.
Perfect. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to item 4D5, Brit West Soccer. Can I get a motion in a second?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any comment?
Would be helpful if we knew.
Why is it?
We would need to know
Why we're
why
removing
we
it?
removed
Okay.
it.
Sorry.
Then we can address it.
Yeah, I asked to have it
Trunk.
removed. I am going to abstain from this item. I have an adult family member, not a relative, but someone who lives in my household, who is an employee of Brit West. Although technically, I don't believe that there is a conflict of interest because they are an adult and they are not a relative. Out of an abundance of caution, I plan to abstain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Trunky. Can I get a motion in a second?
We have a motion
got a
and a
motion.
Oh,
second.
sorry, we have motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Excuse
opposed?
me, abstain.
Abstain. One abstention. Motion passes.
Force of habit.
Okay, moving on to item 2, Comprehensive School Safety Plan for 2025-2026 school year. Mr. Watson, you asked us to remove?
Can we
Yes,
get a motion in a second?
Yes, motion and a second.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I asked it to be removed. We're looking at the school safety plan for all of our schools. There's a matrix on here that talks about the different objectives that we're working to achieve. And I love looking at these where it's got the objectives, the action steps that we're going to take, the resources, the lead person, and the evaluation, a very comprehensive way of looking at these things. I was a little concerned when I saw that one of the lead persons on a couple of these items at each of our schools is the wellness TOSA. Do we still have a wellness TOSA in our district?
No, we do not.
We do not currently have one. That person is in a different job category. But as I shared with you privately, and now we'll share with you again publicly, I think we have conversations outside of the dais. We possibly would need to have additional wellness TOSAs in the future, especially if we're looking at things like changing our behavior management program throughout the whole district and adopting a new social emotional learning program. I think our teachers would benefit from having that additional support and people who can work with the different publishers and how we implement and sort of coordinate some of that for them, with them.
So is this a section that needs to be amended before we approve it, or we're going to approve it in the hopes that we can add a wellness TOSA in the future?
I think we see at the school sites, our site administrators step into some of those roles along with the school social workers, but that would be at the board's discretion.
But I guess I would agree, like, I don't know if I would want to approve it if that person doesn't exist right now.
Well, everywhere they're listed, they're not the only person listed, so it's not like it's gonna be left undone.
I just want to approve something if that person doesn't exist.
Is there any issue if we don't approve it now and wait until the next meeting to approve it with an updated?
I believe they need to be submitted to the state by the end of the month. Is that correct? March 1st.
March 1st.
Madam President, point of order, there is a motion and a second on the floor. So.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not ready to vote on it yet.
Oh, okay.
So is it something that's easily removed if we move into next year without a wellness TOSA?
Yes,
So we can go back and amend it before we enter the year, even though we've submitted it on March 1st?
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
It's meant to be a living document, just like the SIPSA and other documents that we have.
Okay. Okay, with that
With that,
response, I'm
you're-
prepared to vote, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. All right, moving on to education services. Adopt resolution number 2425, number 48, a resolution of the governing board of the Saugus Union School District recognizing and honoring National Women's History Month theme for 2025. Moving forward together, women educating and inspiring generations. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And
Mr. Clement.
Mr. Clement.
Okay, you said it all, but this year the theme spotlights women and their contributions to education and what they've done within education over generations and generations. So this celebrates women in history for the month of March.
Thank you, Mr. Clement.
Look at all the women on the dais.
Right, so many women. Board members, any comments or feedback? No, okay. We had a motion and a second. We
Clerk,
will take a
call the
roll
roll.
call. Yes, the clerk.
Mr. Watson?
Aye.
Mr. Chunky?
Aye.
Ms. Cooper?
Aye.
Ms. Garabay?
Aye.
And I say aye.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to resolution 2425, number 49, a resolution of the governing board of the Saugus Union School District for recognition of Conservation Bird and Arbor Day. Can I get a motion in a second?
Move to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Clement.
All right, within the state of California, this is how we recognize our care for the earth. And that's
Got it. That's it. Great. Required. Do we have any comments, questions?
Yay for birds.
No? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Watson,
Aye.
Mr. Trunky,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, aye.
Great. Moving on to business services, we have one item approved to declare certain district-owned property as surplus. Can I have a motion in a second, please?
Move to approve.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Heinlein.
These are just the trucks that we were able to replace this year. We need to surplus the old ones. And then some tables and chairs at West Creek.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments? Thoughts? No? Motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, consider and approve letter to be sent to Senator Suzette Valladares and Assemblymember Pilar Chavo regarding universal pre-kindergarten funding. Can I have a motion in a second, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. And I will refer to Dr. Hawkins.
So our universal pre-K funding that we've had to start up, pre-TK, is expiring. And there's a lot of requirements for this particular program. It is truly a preschool program. It is not a transitional kindergarten program. And it really needs that funding. And, you know, I love what it's going to do for kids and for their families, but school districts need the funding to keep that program going. And I think Senator Valladares and Assemblymember Chavo need this, as well as those that are, you know, lobbying for the bill in the legislature or wrote the bill in the legislature. I think our local area people also need to be involved. And so with that,
The letter attached is to Scott Wiener and Jesse Gabriel.
I know it's
that correct?
it's going to be adjusted based on your approval.
Okay.
That's the original template that was sent and requested for us to send to those two lawmakers.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just the folks in Sacramento love to give us stuff to do, and it's important that they help us do those things.
With money.
Yes.
Great. All those,
And sticks and carrots.
Yeah, well.
we have a motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No, motion passes. Okay, moving on, approve a casting vote for Region 22 for the 2025 CSBA Delegate Assembly. Can I have a motion in a second, please?
I would like to make a motion that we vote for Dr. Sharice Moore of the Hart District to continue and be reelected as a delegate for our CSBA Region 22.
I would second that nomination.
Dr. Hawkins?
That's all I got.
That's all on us? Okay. Any questions or thoughts? No?
I will just add some context. Region 22 is made up of the Antelope Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley. There is a formula that CSBA uses based on enrollments of districts in determining the number of delegates that each region has. Unfortunately, and they apply that formula every few years to make any changes to the number of delegates in each region. Unfortunately, Region 22, as a result of that format, and as a result, most regions throughout California, because of declining enrollment, are all losing delegates. Unfortunately, it's not a very perfect formula, so our region is losing a delegate. And unfortunately, the Antelope Valley has way more school districts than we have here in Santa Clarita. So as a result, I chose not to run for reelection as a delegate. So there are two candidates for two seats, one from the Antelope Valley and Dr. Moore for Santa Clarita. Unfortunately, over the last number of years, the number of delegates that Santa Clarita has had, which was more in balance with the number of Antelope Valley delegates, has decreased. Santa Clarita Valley used to have 3, then we had 2, and now we're only going to have 1.
Thank you for the explanation. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Our next board meeting is scheduled for March 4th. We are going to recess back to closed session. So can I get a motion to recess to closed session?
So moved.
That doesn't require. a
It
motion.
doesn't? Okay, we weren't sure.
Okay.
We're going to recess to closed session, 9:30 PM. Thank you.